I imported this piece of AAA quality Ametrine directly from the Anahi Mine in Bolivia. It's too large for my carat weight scale to measure, but it's between 22 and 30 grams, or a whopping 110 to 150 carats. I imported a small parcel of AAA quality Ametrine where each piece was between 22 to 30 grams and each piece had been trimmed to give about a 50-50 split between the purple amethyst and the yellow citrine, which is a rare occurrence, and that split of amethyst and citrine is what makes Ametrine Ametrine. The mine does not produce a lot of AAA quality, and none of my regular rough dealers had AAA quality in the 22 to 30 gram size, so that's why I reached out directly to the mine owners. The mine doesn't sell individual pieces of rough, so I had to buy a parcel or a lot, which I don't like to do, but I had no other way to get this size and quality of Ametrine. I am happy that I imported this parcel, and I've cut most of it already. Going to have to get another parcel in the near future, and I hope they still have some AAA quality available when I get some more. For design, I came across this shallow pavilion design a while ago and have cut it before. I modified the original design, which was created by Robert Long and Norman Steele back in the late 1980s. Nothing wrong with the original design, but I wanted a table on my stone, so I modified the design using the Gem Cut Studio software to put a table on gemstone, and a kind of like a picture frame around the table. And that's an effect that I really like. The original unmodified design is available in the facetdiagrams.org website if you want to try the original design. Again, this is the modified design, which I'll be using to cut this Ametrine. And here is the video where I modified the original design, and I show you how I did it using the GCS software. And here's a link to that video if you're interested. Okay, to mount our Ametrine to our DOP, in this case, I'm not trying to center the stone under the DOP. I'm trying to center the line where the color changes from purple to kind of a citrine. That line across the stone I'm trying to center in the DOP. So I'm not concerned about if I lose some of the rough on either ends. That's not the issue. I want to get the center line as close as you can in the final stone, and the center line may not even be perfectly straight, and it may not go down perfectly straight, but close enough. Just trying to, that's how I try to center it. Now this is a larger stone, so I generally mount my stones to the DOP now with the UV light activated super glue, because that allows me to kind of work with the super glue and the stone and the DOP and adjust things, move things around until I get them where I want them, and then I hit it with the UV light and it cures right away, and I'm ready to start cutting. But in the case of this larger stone, I'm going to use two-part epoxy, and there's a number of two-part epoxies that work fine. I currently use the DevCon two-part epoxy. It comes with it's a hardener and a if I can get that in focus, and the resin, and you just I take a old business card and I make two puddles with the epoxy just by eyeball. Make them, two round puddles on the business card about the same size. Then you mix them together, and then once you start mixing it together, the resin and the hardener together, you have a couple of minutes to get the epoxy onto the stone before it starts setting up. And at that point, I let it cure. Generally, I'm working on other projects. I'll let it cure overnight and start cutting it on the next day. So again, I'm just looking for the two puddles to be about the same size. And again, close enough is close enough. So this one's slightly, I can see it's bigger. So just take a little off, right? No problem. And start mixing the two together. I use a bamboo skewer that you can get from the grocery store. And then we put it get a little bit under the dop and then all the way around the dop. Push the dop back onto the stone, tighten it up, and then turn your transfer fixture over as needed to let the epoxy run down a little bit on the dop, and then if it starts running down too far, turn your transfer fixture over again, and in a couple of minutes it starts hardening up, and you don't have to move the transfer fixture after that. So you just keep an eye on it for a couple of minutes while it's setting up. And then I just set it aside. Like I said, I'll work on another project and come back and start cutting on this project probably tomorrow. Okay, to put our Ametrine into our machine, you want the division of the colors to either be at the 96 tooth and the 48 tooth on the bottom, or the 24 and 72 on the sides. You could have the division of color going this way. Because it's a square stone, it doesn't make any difference how you do it, whether it's this way or this way, but you want that division at those teeth so that we get a nice kind of close as possible to a 50-50 mix of color. Now we're ready to start cutting our Ametrine. Okay, I've gone over all the facets on the Pavilion for our Ametrine. So now I'll use a different lap. I used first I used a rather rough lap, 150 grit, to preform the stone, and then I went to my 600 grit topper, and now I'll use my 12M, about a 1500 grit topper, to further kind of get the stone where we need it to be. But coming along nicely, all the facets are where they need to be, and I don't see any issues with the stone, so it's looking good. Okay, I finished polishing the bottom half of our Ametrine with the cerium oxide on a creamway lap, and now I'm ready to transfer our stone and cut and polish the upper half. As you look at the stone on the right side, I just finished preforming the first two facets with my 240 grit diamond topper, and now I'll show you the next cut. This is my 240 grit diamond topper, and toppers work fine at the rougher grits, but I would not use them at the finer, certainly not the pre-polished stages. I get a good water drip going, and that washes the quartz swarf away, and it also helps cool the stone. And since I already have the mast of my Ultratech fastening machine set up for the right depth of a cut, I'm ready to continue cutting around this row of facets. And here is the preformed facet, and I'll continue to work my way around the gemstone. Okay, I've preformed the upper half of our Ametrine with a 240 grit topper lap, and so now I'll continue to preform, bring the girdle down a little further, probably to about a 0.3 or a 0.5 millimeter girdle, probably 0.5, and then continue to work on the upper half of our Ametrine. So this is shows the difference between when I went over this the crown with my 600 grit topper, and now that I've started with my 12M, about a 1500 grit diamond. So those are the differences as you move up finer and finer grits towards your polishing. Okay, I polished the upper half of our Ametrine. I ended up using the tin lap with cerium oxide. I started using the creamway with cerium oxide, but that wasn't moving the facets very much, and it started scratching a little bit. So I switched to my tin lap and polished up the stone no problem. Now you'll notice right here, this is going to be the table, but the reason this is unpolished is when I did the final row of facets on the crown, the 15-degree angle step cut, I decided to cut another row at less than 15 degrees, so I used 10 degrees, and with the same teeth of the index, and that just brought it in so that when I went back to this step, I didn't have to cut and polish all this extra material, which is going to get cut away when I cut the table anyway. So that's why you see that that part of the stone. So now I'll set up the stone to cut and polish the table. Okay, we've polished the table with cerium oxide and tin lap. So now I will soak the stone in acetone to remove the adhesive. We'll weigh it, measure it, and send it off to BOPIE. I'm interested to see what she turns this gemstone into as a piece of jewelry. Today I cut a very large AAA quality Ametrine into a design that I really enjoy cutting. It's a square design originally created by Robert Long and Norman Steele, and I have modified the design to make a tabletop on the top, and which that in no way means I don't like the original design. It's just that I really like having a table, and a table with a step cut gives the stone kind of a picture frame design on the top, which I personally like. The Anahi Mine in Bolivia is the main producer of Ametrine in the world, but they don't produce a lot of AAA quality, especially in the large sizes that I wanted to cut. So I had to contact the mine orders directly and import a parcel of the larger pieces of AAA Ametrine rough. This design is awesome, and I think that any cutter would have no problem with this design. Plus, because Mr. Long and Steele designed this cut to have a shallow pavilion, it makes BOPIE, my wife, very happy, as most colored gemstone designs have a deeper pavilion than a diamond, for example, would. And this is due to the higher refractive index of a diamond, and that refractive index relates to how light is reflected back out of the stone. Long story short, diamonds generally have a shallower pavilion than colored gemstones. So a lot of standard gold, platinum, silver mountings are created for diamond centerpieces and have to be adjusted sometimes to accommodate colored gemstones, just because of the deeper pavilion, but not in this case, which is great. So please let me know what you think of this design and of the final gemstone, and as always, happy fasting, everyone.